As part of the city charter, Boulder is required to produce a balanced budget every year. And joining us today is Finance Director Bob Ikem to help us understand what the budget process is for Boulder this year. Bob, welcome to Inside Boulder.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Bob, how does the city determine what should be included in the city budget and what shouldn't be?
For the past several years, we've used a business plan approach. The business plan approach would break categories of essential, desirable, discretionary, and really you'd compare those to how do they have an influence on the goals that the city council had set. Last year, Jane Brodigan, our city manager, also wanted to get input from the communities, so we had community meetings. And we take all of that input, take all that information, see what the priorities were, and then that would become her recommended budget that's presented to council about the middle of August.
And I understand that because of the economy, we've been hearing a lot about the current economy is the new normal, and governments really have to refocus and rethink how they do government. How is that factoring into Boulder's budget process?
Well, I think we were ahead of the curve. The Blue Ribbon Commission 1 report that came out really let us know that the services and the programs that we offer were increasing at 4% a year, the costs on those, and the revenues were increasing at 3%. And we said, this is out of balance, so we have a structural imbalance. And then along came this recession, the deepest since the 1930s. And across the country, we're seeing people saying their revenue bases are going to reset, and they're going to be much lower than they were before, and they're not going to be coming back as fast as they were. Used to, okay, it'll catch back up, and we'll go right on with our programs. Well, now people are not seeing that. They're saying it's going to be lower revenues, it's going to be very slow growth, and that's what people call the new normal. So Boulder, we've known that, been working on that for about 3 years now. So I don't know if we were ahead of the curve or we were just anticipating it, but the buzzword, the new normal, is very common out there at the federal government, state, and local level.
How is that factoring into setting the priorities for the city?
Well, we're going to a new process this year. The business plan was good, but over time what we found was that 80% of the items were ending up in the essential category. And of course, that really doesn't give you a priority. Everything's a priority. So this priority-based budgeting is a program that's being used in many different local governments around the country, but it goes out and it'll ask the community and ask our council, we'll say, what are the results we want? What are those big overarching goals that we want? And what does it mean? How will we know that we're attaining that? So there's performance measures, and it says, let's prioritize our programs from top to bottom. And those that are on the lower end, maybe in the third and fourth quartile, will say, well, is there another way to do this? Can we consolidate programs? So you're working on both the revenue and the expenditure side. And that prioritization process doesn't let you lump everything 80% into being an essential category. So it's an evolutionary step that needed to be done with the business plan as revenues become more tight.
How does the city know that its priorities are meeting up with what the community's values are?
This process, we had community meetings, and part of that was they were developing. And how it works in priority-based budgeting is, here's the result, here's the goal, the outcome that we want in the end. And so that, that comes from the community tests that, but also the council and staff looks at it. But then we say, when the city of Boulder does X, that's a definition that it's going to help us meet that result. And that result is the value. And there are those primary overarching goals that we want within the city. And then we actually value programs and say, how do they contribute to each one of those definitions for that result and outcome that we want to happen? So the whole thing ties it together because you've had your community input, of course you have council input, city manager, when she puts her budget together, that's what her recommended budget will go to those priorities.
And when is the budget reviewed and council adopting it?
It's an ongoing process, but really right now we're looking at what happened in 2009. What are the trends going on with our revenues? Is that going to adjust and change the revenue projections we made last year? Because we made some fairly substantial reductions last year and also in this 2010 budget. And then we'll go back to council in about April, and that's when we'll give an update of where we think things are going and also what we see on the horizon. The recommended budget itself has to be to the council, I'd said earlier, in mid-August. It's required in the charter. And then council will have meetings in late August, and they'll adopt, the charter says we'll have the budget adopted by December 1. It doesn't have to be exactly December 1, it can be before that, but it does need to be passed by December 1.
Thank you, Bob. We've been speaking with Finance Director Bob Ikem about the city's budget process, and we'll be right back with a tour of the Emergency Operations Center.